Blessings. How are you? I'm Gavin Myers from Jamaica, and I am presenting with my friend Lace Jackson. We are both researchers, PhD students in the Faculty of Business and Law at Open University. I will have a little presentation to do on representations of identity and belonging, and we have titled it "Unbelonging: Representations of Identity and Belonging in the United Kingdom." And I'd like to thank you for taking time to listen to us and participate in this. So I'd introduce Lace. Hi, Lace.
Hi, thanks, Gavin. Hi, I'm Lace Jackson, and like Gavin said, I'm a part-time researcher with the Faculty of Business and Law. And yeah, welcome, and I hope you really enjoy the session and that you interact with us to talk about representations and identity. You're taking control, Gavin.
Yeah. Oh, yes. We should make a note that this is a interactive presentation, and we intend and we have developed it as a way to discuss, bring ideas to the fore, and emerge with a concept that we share of what belong is. So let's move on. So the introduction is how we've structured it is the first part is a look at what identity representation is. A second aspect is looking at belong and unbelonging. And then we'll look at identity in the UK context and some call to action movements. So this is our next slide. In the late 70s, 1980s, Labi Siffre became one of the voices of, well, Black British. And this song, Something Inside So Strong, has been used as a part of structured commentary discussions against, well, and resistance to apartheid and many issues. Labi was born in Britain of a Barbadian parent, and he speaks about his feelings of unbelong. So I'd like to bring in here some points on, let's ask this question. Any one of you, give me, and you take 1 point for any one of them that has happened to you. Have you ever felt this way, in which our belong has been questioned? Somebody has come up to you, you're standing up. Can I help you? Or this one, where are you from? How did you come here? And the nice one, are you from here? And this good one, your English, so good. Do you know where you are? So could you give me a point, or could you know in the notes, press out and tell me how much of them has happened to all of them? Anybody else? Or anyone did I miss out on? Oh, 5. Oh, all of them. Oh, 1, most. None. Name which one have I missed out on? Oh, where are you from? Yes. Oh, none. More. And it's sometimes very interesting with the persons who come and say to you, are you from here? Oh, when are you going home? I just live down the road. I'm just going down the road. Yeah, no, I mean, where are you really from? Oh, just down the road. Yes, we listen to every music. Oh, I didn't know you listen to that type of music. How long have you been here? I was born here. Imagine this. Oh, here's this good one. So where your family from? So this question of belong is important for, yes. Oh, where's that accent from? Did you get, oh, I can't pronounce your name. Do you get that one too? Yes. Where are you really from? I'm from Yorkshire. These things, in some way, places this question on our identity and our belong that sometimes affects us way beyond just a question. And then there's some actions that come with it. You know that smile, hi, or the stare, the furtive glance, and the run. Anyone has gotten the run? You're walking down the road and somebody runs, or the big grasp of the bags, the crossing of the streets. The crossing. These things, in some way, subtly and sometimes very overtly. Oh, the shock and horror look, the fright. But this question now, and we're discussing it in this way, but we're now realizing that it's not just one set, but generally persons have been seeing, feeling, you get extra space on the train. Yes. Full London Metro, and you get extra space. The hand. Yes, these feelings of belong are, in some ways, things that migrants, wherever we are, feel. This feeling of unbelong, subtly. We'll come to that question. And it's not about color. It's about the global majority, typically. And this question of where do we fit in? Where do we belong? When we started this discussion, Les and I immediately knew where we were going to go with this. And we could see, without ever meeting each other, these subtle things that have happened to us as a part of our lives, as a part of our growing up, as a part of just being here. And we know that it's important for us to discuss this and to find ways for us to engage. Now, I want to bring in another thing now. What to you is belong? I think maybe here I could suggest a type in, and myself and Liz will read out, or Liz?
Yeah, Gavin, could we just take one question?
Yes.
I think it's from Darren Gray. How do white people interested in the world have conversations? Do you want to say a bit more about that question, Darren?
Yes, Darren, please.
Hang on, I'll just
On mute.
yeah, I just have to get his camera on. Sorry, Darren.
Yes, and thank you for that question,
Yes,
Darren.
thank you.
Hi, I'm Gavin.
Yeah. Okay, Darren.
Hello. Yes, thank you
Hello.
very much.
Hi, Darren.
Yeah, I am genuinely really interested to know about people with different cultures, different backgrounds, different parts of the world. And I get quite excited when I see other people from different backgrounds, probably a little overly excited, and just interested to know about potentially where, if you have been born abroad or parents or grandparents. I really want to try and enrich myself in terms of cultures from around the world. But how do I do it in a way that doesn't make you feel like you don't belong? Because I very much recognise you are, British, but I just want to learn more, really.
Okay. Well, I'll answer from a perspective. So, Britishness, or your being here, is first a part of, well, we accept that you are here. But the next question that comes in, and the feeling, or the said and the unsaid, is the fetishization, and we can go deep into Edward Said's concept of Orientalism and how this has placed a fetish on other persons and how they look and what they are. And then maybe the question that we would generally ask is if you see somebody from Wales, would you ask them where are they from, or would they come from there? Or, and maybe this would be the question: how would you ask somebody from Scotland where they are from?
From my own personal perspective, I would probably ask them tell me about the Highlands, or tell me about, if trying to find out where they were from.
Yes.
I'm interested in Scotland and Wales and Northern Ireland as well.
Yes.
But I don't want my enthusiasm to be demeaning, or I completely get what you're saying about the fetishization. I don't want it to belittle. I just want to be positive, and I want to engage.
No, Darren, I love when somebody comes up and says, and sees my Jamaica shirt and asks, "Oh, are you from Jamaica?" And I'm like, "No, I'm from St. Vincent." but I like the conversation. I love that. But I want you to want to know me and not see me as some representation. Oh, you Jamaicans are here. That is it. Get to know me. Want to know me. It isn't that.
So yeah, sorry to cut you. In the chat, and I think Fideli said, get to know me as a person, and once we have a rapport, then start to ask some questions. Yes. It might be, as someone said, to pick up on the accent. Where's your accent from? So these are just different ways and different tones in the voice. The animated interest is shown in the face. So yeah, lots of really good points in the chat. Yeah.
And thank you very much. I'll duck out now because enjoying your presentation. Thank you.
Okay. Chloe says that there's a boundary between wanting to know and just being over the top. And yeah, this is it. So maybe the question of belong now comes in with the questioned, because often we find persons questioning in either how they ask or what they do, your presence. And this has a disconcerting impact upon you as a person when you're walking, or just your feeling of being there. Imagine as a child, you're being born here and somebody asks, when are you going back home? Or even more, telling you to go back home, and the only home you know is just down the road. Lancaster. When are you going back home? I am home. So belong is this feeling that it's hard for us to describe, but intensely you feel it when you don't belong. The other thing that we're bringing is identity. This concept of identity that is emerging is one not only of ethnic or social background, but this feeling that there's some shared belong that we culture, other things that ascribes us to this place or to a place. And sometimes it's imposed, sometimes it's felt. And at most times it's something that we ascribe to, we hold to, and it gives us that meaning to life. Like for me, it's tea. It's belief in tea, that tea heals everything. My mother, no matter what it is, oh, you're feeling your toe hurting you? Drink some tea. These are things that impact upon our concepts of belong in different ways. And maybe the other one is acceptance. Oh, there's a hand up. Was it a hand?
No, I think you're getting a thumbs up.
Oh, I'm seeing a thumbs up.
Yeah.
And so maybe the question is, what are some of the points of identity that you think us as people here have had either questioned or persons have seen as different? Anything anybody wants to bring in here? Oh, belonging. Being able to go about my life. I'm trying to read your message.
Read it. So belonging, being able to go about my life in the UK without my presence or identity as a Brit ever being questioned. Then when I'm in the UK, I'm told to go home, and when I'm abroad in Asia, I'm often asked when I'm going home.
Yes, that feeling of not belonging either place.
Yeah.
Who, I literally, my family left Bangladesh 2 generations ago. I can't go back to Bangladesh. There is no Bangladesh for me to go back to. I am British. Yes. My identity is as a Yorkshire person. Yes. Despite not having an accent.
Yeah.
Yes. These are things. I'd like to bring in now maybe another question. And there's also the point of gender and age to this identity and belong. That is also important for us to discuss and to see how this differs for different persons and different places. Our age brings us a different type of viewpoint, our look. So I am not a small looking person. Yes. In Jamaica, they call me Biggs. So imagine me walking on the road and somebody instantly gives me that look. I know that look. And all I can do is smile. And I do have a great day, which disconcerts. But that feeling is something that makes me question. And even persons question just me being there. Liz, would you talk about belong in terms of gender too? Being of mixed race.
Its origin have found it hard at times to have a sense of belonging. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. Yes, this is very important, and it's something that we'll keep discussing as we go along. So I want to move to the next slide now, which now Lace would want to bring in.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
So I'm just going to take you through some of my research, particularly looking at kind of on belonging and identity, but looking at the concept of rootlessness, which one of my participants particularly spoke about. So just give you some background in relation to that. So Gavin, if you can watch the chat for me.
Yes.
I'm going to have to turn it off so I can see the slides. So I'm at that point. Okay. So I carried out some interpretive research. I interviewed 35 participants. Sorry, I've got to make it a bit bigger because I can't actually see it very well. So with 35 participants, I call them global majority, and that's stemming from Johnson and Campbell-Stevens as a term, which I think is much more affirming rather than ethnic minority. So there's a big debate about the term BAM, which I don't assign to. So I had 22 females, so we talk about some of that, looking at gender issues in terms of identity, and 13 males. And I collected the data over 5 years, looking at it from a UK concept. Like I said, looking at it through a critical post-structural and post-colonial lens, looking at the legacy of, colonisation and what that means for global majority people in the UK specifically, because there's a lot of work that's done in the UK and other Eurocentric organisations, but not necessarily looking at, sorry, not necessarily looking at the UK. Some of the themes, no, some of the sectors that people came from identified as senior leaders and leaders were in banking, education, health, policing, human resources, commercial business. I had started out wanting to look at the public sector because that's where the majority of my experience is from. But what I kind of found going through is that some of the things that were coming out of the research is consistent across all sectors. So I'm just going to go on to show you. So in terms of some of the grand things coming out of the themes of rootlessness, so things like colonial legacy of displacement and loss, leadership and community disconnection, separation and self-isolation. and then the triple bind of trauma and stress. And then, in a sense, the UK, one of the words of the participant, that it's a different planet, which really makes them feel like they unbelong and are different in that respect. I didn't give you kind of their direct quotes, but I have got some with me. So the sub-theme of rootlessness came about. One of the participants named this, and it seemed to be most evident. So in terms of the my sample population, I had people who would identify as African, people who would identify as Caribbean, people who would identify as Black British. I had some Asian participants. I had Iranian. So looking specifically at the global south was what I was kind of aiming for. And what was most evident coming out of the research was that, particularly for those first generation children, from descendants from the Windrush generation, and those second generation children, those born in around the 80s, that rootlessness means a lack of identity and a place of belonging, being displaced and unable to identify a place of reference as a cultural or physical home of belonging. So in some of the chat we've seen that some of you have experienced that in relation to leaving a place of reference, maybe the place of birth of your parents, being born here or living here for a very, very long time. But what I particularly found for those UK descendants, those that were born here, is that they didn't feel that they had a physical or cultural place of belonging. So some of them could identify with the kind of Caribbean culture, but only kind of through their parents and the knowledge of their parents sharing that with them. But they didn't actually feel that they could own it outrightly as their own. So one of the participants said that, they'd visited Gambia, where they were looking to buy some land, and they spoke to somebody who was from England, a black lady, and asked them the question, do you feel you belong here? And somebody said that in the chat today. So how are you treated by the Gambians? And she said, I will always be a foreigner. Living in England, we are foreigners. Going to the Caribbean, we are foreigners. And going to Gambia, we're foreigners. We actually don't belong anywhere. Nobody actually wants us. So I don't feel I belong anywhere culturally, to be honest. I'm really, I just feel like that rolling stone that nobody wants. So what the kind of analysis was telling me is that it's a kind of nuanced marginalisation. So the group across the board is marginalised, and we know that from the literature and what that means in terms of specific judgments that are made of them and expectations. But particularly for the UK born people, that there doesn't feel like there is somewhere they can call home. So not everyone attributes to the indigenous kind of labels of blackness or BAM or ethnic minority, but they also, in a sense, don't know whether they're African or they're Afro-Caribbean or they're African-Caribbean, to name one of the few. And then there is a feeling of rootlessness described, as I've said, a place of unbelonging, being homeless like a rolling stone, and that they lack really strong ties with either Africa or the Caribbean, particularly for those, like I said, born here. So there's a multiplicity of cultural masks that they wear. So in some whether they're with family or their community, they are trying to connect because there is a feeling of disconnection. And particularly what I found with those who are either educated or in quite senior roles in public life, they're feeling that they have to try and find this connection, and some of that might mean that they feel that they have to dumb down, so they can't talk about maybe their work or their studies and things like that, because it doesn't bring them connection, and they feel that in a way people are proud of them, but they don't understand. But there's also, there can be a backlash to that, in the sense of they're constantly being tested by members of their community or members of their family as to how maybe Black they are, or they can show that they belong to that community. So it results in what I call organisation-induced trauma and stress, because it's constantly that there is the kind of organisational milieu where they constantly feel like they're questioned, that they don't belong, that they're different. But they also then feel that in the community there has been, and I think this is the kind of legacy from the colonialisation and globalisation, so still neo-colonialisation, in that they don't belong in organisations, or they really have daily battles, which include, you know, the micro slights of those environments, and the kind of cold Antarctic kind of climates that they feel, but then they're also struggling to make that connection and belonging within their own communities. So there's also a thing of shadeism, which brings in kind of the class, the gender kind of issues, and it's I don't call it racism, but I call it shadeism, in the sense of we all belong to the human race, but there are different ends of the spectrum in terms of the shade card. So the nearer to white that you are, the more accepted that you are, and that even happens within the kind of communities, in that, you know, the socialisation of people, you can see that the lighter that they are is the more that they get opportunities, perhaps, than darker skinned people within that. So that's something that was coming out, and like I said, the double bind for women, particularly in terms of gender, you know, the embodiment and the kind of embodiment of leadership, or the embodiment of the community, or being expected to be the cultural custodian, and things like the, you know, hair is a big issue in terms of, do you wear your hair natural, or do you have it weaved or pressed, or you wear a wig so that you're more nearer to the white prototype, because that's been the accepted kind of image or in identity that's been prescribed. But then also feeling the backlash from the community to an extent where they are feeling that they have to wear their hair natural. But also then there's that triple bind disadvantage in the kind of Eurocentric organisations, and sometimes in Black-led organisations, because this constant kind of dichotomy and tension between how you can exist within a Eurocentric organisation and milieux that you're having to negotiate and navigate, but then also trying to still find that connection and that place of belonging within the small community context that you have to operate within. So that's kind of some of the things that were coming out, and I think just to really give voice again to the participants. Somebody said, you know, that they understand in a sense their place within the UK, and so I don't honestly know. So this was talking to them about their place of belonging. One said, "I think I won't. I was born in Pride Lands." I've anonymised it, so that's why they're different names. I was born in Pride Lands, East Pride Lands, and I've been through the British education system. I've worked in the British University. I grew up, I was born and raised in this country. And through its traditions and institutions and everything, yeah, I still won't be seen as British, even though I hold a UK passport. In India, when I went a few years ago, I was African, yay, because they see black people in India as African. That's it, African or you're African American or African. They can't believe that there are black people who are British because everyone, their idea of British is white, of white people. In Canada, they were in quite a bit of disbelief as well that I was born in the UK. So even you go to other countries, there was sort of another lapse in what is Britishness. So it's how I define, how I identify it. I'm not really sure at the moment. I'd like to identify as British, but I know in the world I won't. I won't be identified as British, but that's the problem. I think, and I know people who identify as Pridelanders, but don't identify as British, which is another odd sort of question there as well. So I think, I'm not really sure, because if I go to the Caribbean, I'm foreign. If I'm in Britain, I'm foreign. If I go to Africa, I'm foreign. So it's so. So just to kind of, this is my last slide, I think. So just a kind of word cloud of some of the things that are coming out: existence, on-belonging, difference, disenfranchised, rootlessness, unwelcome, displacement, disconnected, foreigners, removed, colonialised, nomadic, a rolling identity, rolling stones, and really something, homelessness and legacy. Back to you, Gavin.
Yeah.
Well, just finishing off.
In listening to this discussion, we remember, and anybody remembers this wonderful song, by the rivers of Babylon, there we sat down. Yeah, the Melodians took this song, and it's a song that Psalm 137 is felt by the Palestinians, by the Israelis, the Jews. Many people have felt this feeling of loss, of being out of place, and the connection to something beyond ourselves has been one of the things that has been used as a way to connect, to feel, and to bring us to movement. This something to hold on to. And we can design this belong. We can design this. This feeling of not belonging here also can create spaces for other feelings that are more hurtful internally and externally to happen. And as people, as a society, we have to develop this space, this imagination, collective imagination of where we are going for us to see. Now, our next slide, emerging when we asked persons what it felt like to feel accepted. So let us see what they have said. So James Chambers, aka Jimmy Cliff, left Somerton in the hills of St. James, went to Kingston, and then beyond that, he wrote many rivers to cross when he said he was on a ferry and he saw the white cliffs of Dover coming over, and he just felt completely lost. The line that holds me everywhere is, and this loneliness won't leave me alone. It's such a drag to be on your own. When we discuss that feeling of acceptance, that feeling of belong in a strange land, many of us speak to that feeling at midnight, at 3 a.m. when you wake up and it's too cold and you think of where you're coming from, or you don't have the family support or the laughter or whatever it is that makes you feel at home. So this sad part is many of us have felt this feeling of unbelong and have felt this loss of community. But our next question to you as all is this: what personal action do you think you individually or us as a collective can do to contribute to this inclusivity and change that we dream of? What do you think you can do? What do you think we can do? And this is where we open up to some questions. What do you think?
So Gavin, we have a couple of comments, but we've also got a question from, is it Paul Guest?
Yes.
I'm trying to click on the hand and it's not opening for me.
Yes.
Can you see
Yeah,
that?
Paul, you can unmute
Yeah.
yourself now.
Yeah.
Yes, Paul.
Thank you very much for the presentation. It highlighted quite a lot of issues. And Jimmy Cliff is my favorite singer, man, you know.
Yes, man.
But I'm wondering, you didn't choose a song by Peter Tosh, and you know it's my stuff,
Yes,
you know.
Paul.
So like Peter Tosh hit the nail on the head. In particular, one tune I wouldn't mention the name of the tune, but I think you do know. On this educational forum, but that was a tune I think that cost Peter Tosh's life, because he made a statement about what the people actually were saying. You know, they weren't talking about intellectualizing the prejudice that they feel. Sorry, he was talking about, the people were talking mainly about the pressures that they were going through, and this is where I come to my point. You know, I'm all in favor of intellectuals talking this stuff, or intellectuals approaching this particular issue from an intellectual viewpoint. But speaking as an ex-soldier, I was 9 years in the Royal Engineers and a year and a half and a bit on active service. My view of racism is slightly different. Although I am involved in intellectual pursuits, and I'm an OU student at the moment, but I see racism as being something that it is like learned behavior. Right? And racism, to a certain extent, is necessary. Let me explain to you what I mean. You have a country that is populated by people that the government has lied to years and years and years. They've told the people a tissue of lies. You've got a load of immigrants coming over. These immigrants were coming from countries that were past the colonial subjects, past colonial subjects. But they're coming here mainly to awaken and educate the working class.
To live as
Now, I
equals.
came here in the 60s, and I can tell you, the prejudice that we receive mainly came from the educational arena. So I use a saying, I say, bigots are not born, they're educated to be.
Yeah.
If you look at the education arena, you would find that the bigotry within that particular discipline is vast.
You know, Paul.
In conclusion, let me tell you a little story if I can. That's a short
Yes.
story. It was about, I was stationed in Yorkshire. A beautiful country,
Very
wonderful
beautiful.
people. I might say that, wonderful
Yes.
people. Well,
Yes.
most of them anyway. And I walked past a church, and this church was um, was presenting some bits from Handel Messiah. I stopped in the churchyard, and from the corner of my eye, I saw the priest kind of peeping around the door, and he saw me looking at him. So he said, "Well, you see me now." So he comes out, you know, and I wasn't full uniform, and he looked at me, and he asked me, "Oh, hello, hello, how are you?" I said, "I'm fine." I said, "Well, how can I help?" No, the term he used, "How can I help?" You know, not how can I be of service, but how can I help? Very important. So I said, well, I noticed you got a post that says that you're singing some things from Handel as part of your celebration. Is this the full Messiah? No, is this the full Handel of the Messiah, or there's some excerpts from it? And he kind of stepped back and he looked at me. Now, I didn't really clock much into the look, but now I do. He looked at me and says, well, no, actually, we're doing the Hallelujah. We're just doing the Hallelujah chorus, and fine. And he says, do you know about the Hallelujah chorus? I said, yeah, I was in St. Mary's Choir. I'm from Barbados, if you haven't guessed that already. But I said, yeah, I'm in the choir. And we sing Handel Messiah. We sing a lot of anthems written by various people,
Yes.
Handel, Mozart, and we're very much into that culture as well. So he was literally shocked and taken back.
Could not believe
And
that
I
you
started
know.
talking to him about Handel, about his life, his work, and the surprise of this guy's face was unbelievable. Now, I regard that really and truly as the first hardcore example of racism I have experienced in this country. Now, we talk about racism, but we do not talk about the racism that is embedded within the educational and cultural structure of this particular country.
Yes.
So,
Sorry,
that
Paul,
was
It's about time
Paul.
Yeah.
look at how.
Yeah,
Paul.
sorry, Paul. Can we
Sorry, yeah.
can we draw it to a close, because we still want to hear the end of the
Sorry, yes, okay.
presentation also?
I do beg your pardon.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
man.
Thank you, Paul, for that.
Thank you
And
very much.
I do, and like I said, part of the research that I have does look at the education, the function of education in terms of continued patriarchy and racism. And really, what's coming out of that is that it's the first institution where a number of the research participants experienced racism and segregation because of the banding process and system. So there is a lot more in that in terms of what we're saying about the education curriculum and decolonizing that, because I think it is absolutely important. So that's one of the kind of policy and practice areas that needs to change as a result of kind of what we're finding out. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
So yeah, we do need to move on. We've got 10 minutes.
Yes. One of the points that we have to raise effectively is that our work is as practitioners and also as persons who are from the community that we're speaking about. So we feel. So I'd love other points about your Blue Island thinking, your utopia, your good place. What can we do to contribute to that place? So we heard one point, which is speaking to engaging and reconnecting with the human. Any other points you would like to raise? So Corey says, it's hard to honestly say what change we can make. I think it's a societal issue.
Yeah.
It is very much a societal issue. It is very much a societal issue. And it's a political, practical issue that we have to engage with. And it's a policy issue that we speak to. And it's also something that we have to deal with front on. It's not something we can hide from. It's sometimes when somebody says, does the clutch bag, we do the smile. I see you. My thought is, the more we say to persons, I see you, the less comfortable they'll be with that. We could engage. Shouldn't we see color though? Shouldn't we see what persons are? Yes, Darren, respect. Knowing individuals are individuals. Oh, what marginalized? No, this is a deep piece of research now. Yeah, I want people to see me. I want them to see the Jamaica. Well, I want them to hear the Jamaican when I hear this music and to smell the food. To me, yes. Color blindness is racism. Not seeing me for who I am is racist. It's discriminatory. Not seeing me for being male, female, whatever we are, it is taking away a part of me. I support OU tutors.
Can I read that for? Hang on, let me get back
Yes.
to it. Gosh, it's jumping so quickly.
It's jumping.
Yeah.
Yes.
I've lost the chat. So
let me, structural inequalities must not be forgotten, but at least we can make individuals and groups of individuals have a better experience in the environments we move in, which is so true. And if we read there's an organizational responsibility to look after us. And there's responsibility for us all to be a part of this. Personal assumption, yep. Challenge the assumptions.
So can I go back to Janine's? So Janine supports and develops OU tutors, and much of her work is around creating a student-centred approach to teaching and learning. The comments today about the need for rapport and feeling of belonging have enriched my thinking in this area and will develop, refine and nuance the support I provide. Thank you for this, everyone who's contributed today. These conversations are so useful in informing personal and professional practice in positive ways. Structural inequalities mustn't be forgotten, but at least we can make individuals and groups of individuals have a better experience in the environments we move in. Absolutely. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. That is a succinct point that we raise. Often we have heard a throwaway comment that if you mention or you pick up on something that's racist, and someone says, oh, you're bringing racism in. No, we're not bringing racism in. We're actually acknowledging and identifying that you may be acting in a way that has racist connotations or we see as discriminatory. It is engaging you and asking you that you want to be a part of a conversation that we want change.
And Kirsten says, we're not bringing it in, we're pointing it out.
Yes, we're pointing it out. It is there. Yeah. When you says, oh, I don't see race, or I feel involved, I feel you aren't the person that is actually there. You aren't the person who's feeling it. We who feel it are saying. Sorry.
This is probably a bit controversial, but I think, and it goes back to our education, we're not two races, we're one race. So in terms of, we probably need to change the narrative, which is what this is about, is it being professional disruptors. So I prefer the term shadeism because that's what it is. We're different shades of one race.
There's so much fragility and fear.
Yeah.
Fragility is, it happens because, well, we're humans and fragility is happening. If ever you, oh, I can't ride a bicycle. And if somebody tells me that I should get on a bicycle, I'll feel fragile too. So it's a matter of perception. There's the other point that we would like to raise in this, that having conversations, having open, honest conversations are important. This book about white fragility. And anybody has ever called out anyone for their racism and seen them cry? Have you felt white tears? Who has felt it? I have. Anybody want to talk about that? Yes.
We call it weaponizing victimhood.
Oh.
That's not me, but Neela Jones, yeah.
Yes.
Really good word. But it's kind of involved in this organisation. So taking it away from an individuals and, you know, the kind of psychology of always feeling that it must be me, or the self-criticism. It's basically looking at that it's organisationally inflicted. It's the environments in which we have to operate in, how we feel about that, and making it something that we've got to get to grips with, in the sense of it's not necessarily individual person to person, but it exists, and it exists in the underlying discourses and narratives of the organisations in which we belong.
The issues that we now deal with in terms of Brexit, the Windrush scandal, other issues like that are examples. massive examples of how organizations structurally, politically, socially, we can be othered, we can be made to feel like we don't belong. So anyone who has lived or walked along the coast can speak about how they have had that feeling of persons asking why are they there when it's structured that way. When systematically you can hear statements that these persons are here for your jobs or those stories, it is structured feeling of unbelong. You, yes, this feeling that you do not belong impacts on all aspects of you. Imagine you leaving your space because of violence, because of fear, and you are walking in a space that you should feel freer in, but yet still, you still feel unbelong. It's that space that we have to make for asylum seekers, for refugees. Yes, it is the denial of citizenship. It is the erasure of citizenship. It is when someone who was not who did not anyway belong, was not born in Bangladesh, has her UK citizenship that she gained from being born here, being taken away. It's that feeling. And we need to have that conversation.
So I'd just like to go back to Mustafa. Sorry, where was it? And Chinindu. Sorry, Chinindu. Right. It's funny how the colour of the skin could be named better than white and black, but hundreds of objects and materials have their colours properly named. Yes. And Mustafa, who says, indeed, yeah, who gets to define and determine the criteria for being human? I think we know that. So we're going to have to redefine what that means. And I think it is by us starting to use different narratives, different language. I think it was Fergal Sharkey, isn't it? Say if you change the language, you change the communication, you change the world. So for me, it's it's getting away from this concept that there are different races. That was brought in. Racial classification was brought in for a specific reason, as was education, generalised or universal education, as Paul pointed out. And it's going to be those things that we've got to redefine in order to have a more positive future. So yeah, and Thanda, I think some people have grown a thick skin and are beginning to accept things they should not. Some are tired of fighting back and speaking out. And I think you're echoing what some of my respondents have said, that it's a daily battle, and our leadership is forged in the flame of those battles. Yeah. But we keep fighting.
Otania, Gideon both.
Yes.
So there's this health-based, and the health-based implications of unbelonging are amazing. It's psychosomatic, it's psychosocial, and in other ways it emerges in ways we then, even when we have health issues, organizations that are supposed to be there for you in health-wise sometimes are places of conflict, are places of hurt. This change in narrative is important. This change in place is important. And we can speak to how the education system has been used as a weapon. We can speak to how the health services have, in some ways, though your mother or your family are working in the health services, you still feel like you have less access than others to the health services and to the health care that you need. We can speak to how persons who are from Caribbean origin have been more likely to be institutionalized than others, who this type of feeling has implications on your health-seeking behavior. And we can speak to this in terms of the impact that it has had on COVID and our COVID rates. These relationships and this communication we can speak to going forward. But in going forward, we can say that having the conversations first. So now our next slide is...
Can I just take one question from...
Yes.
Which is probably what we're coming on to. So Anthony Young, what would you say is the role of leadership in this? Because we are talking about leadership.
Yes. Leadership plays a critical role. If we go in history, Enoch Powell, Rivers of Blood, has been one of the conversations and one of the pieces that have been used as a piece of foment. And this echo can be seen in different conversations or different stories that we use, that have been used in national politics and local politics to mobilize persons. We have also, at the OU, have seen where our social action have been to deliberately push that we are one, we're together, and we have a belong. So leadership, organizational leadership plays a critical role in this. Local leadership, personal leadership plays an important role in us feeling like we belong, that we have a place here, that we should feel together in this space.
So Gavin, as we are literally on 12 o'clock, I just wanted to come back to Billy, I think it is. Yes, changing the narrative, it is necessary, but it's not sufficient, since beyond the language discourse, there is the question of materiality, including economics. Yeah, there is what they call social consequences for shadism to continue, and patriarchal racism, and structural inequalities. Absolutely right. So I guess the call to action is, we can't do this by ourselves. We've got to be in this together. So one of the roles that leadership can play is for us to, like I said, begin the conversations, or we keep having the conversations decades later, but we've got to take action. And I do believe that one person can change the world. We've seen that. We've seen that in the civil rights movement. We've seen it in other things. We've seen it recently. So we've got to, each one of us has got to take a leadership role in helping each other to change this, as it's not going to change. So we will keep exploring. There is a form to fill in.
Yes.
So please do that. And for the last slide, we're just going to ask you one question.
One takeaway.
Yeah.
One thing that you have taken away.
If you'd like to put that in the chat for us.
Yes. Yeah,
and
thank you.
then go with also the one action that you're going to take, that we're going to take, to kind of change,
stand up,
make a change.
Stand up for your rights. Get up, stand up. Don't give up the fight. Yes, validation, that's good. Get up, stand up. You're not alone, sir. There are lots of us here. And when we work together, we get things moving. Yes, educate yourself and challenge others on their perception. We can do this. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Difficult conversations are important. If we can't have difficult conversations, what can we have? We need to be able to be true to ourselves. Yes. Yes, we need to treat everyone with kindness and respect. Yes, important. We are people. We all belong. Constantly reflect and check ourselves. Check ourselves before we wreck ourselves. Yes. Yes, know who we are. If we don't know, nobody else will know us. Yes.
Yes,
thank you for your time.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much. It has been so important for us to be here, and we have learned so much on this discussion. In fact, it's your presentation. You have been the presenters. We're just here facilitating a wonderful conversation.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you very much. And we will just say, we have material, the material that we have, it is here to be shared. And yes, be well. Be well, and have yourself a good time. Jah guide. So, Liz?
Yes, thank you, Gavin.
Okay, this is our presentation slide. We used many rivers to cross, something inside so strong, and we have our references there. So have yourselves a good day, and please, thank you for being a part of this presentation.